Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and well, welcome to outside. Nook's still in repair, so time to taste a little whiskey with you guys just out here in the great outdoors. Let's take a look at a bourbon again. And this, obviously, we're going to talk some Wild Turkey. But the focus of this review will actually be my thoughts on Russell's Reserve 10. Now, I've shot this before, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, so I guess it's a re-review. But it feels like a lot of time and a fair amount of whiskey has passed under that bridge, so let's talk Russell's Reserve 10-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon when we come back.
3, 4.
Thanks for staying with me through the opener there. Yeah, I have definitely talked all these bottles, and I've done a review on all these bottles, but it's been a while since I've talked Russell's Reserve. And, in my neighborhood, this is always on the shelf for a pretty good price. And it's age stamped 10 years. Comes with the older Jimmy Russell signature and son Eddie Russell on there. And it's a good looking bourbon. And it's got great heritage, but is the whiskey excellent? Well, let's talk a little bit about this bourbon. Hopefully you've got a dram of something. It's a beautiful, warm weekend again up here in the Edmonton area, so hopefully your weather is good. You can pour a little bourbon, nose, and sip along. This nose for me is immediately that classic, Wild Turkey sour. Sweetness, like it's things, I think I'm gonna go sweet, like brown sugar, and then it backs right off and stays just kind of vanilla, already getting oak, and a tartness, a kind of a, if you haven't had Wild Turkey, then I'm not sure how to describe it for you, but I feel it's characteristic of their distillery. But spicy, vanilla, a little bit of caramel, but the sweetness backs off and it feels like it could be a good dram. Let's try it on the palate. Cheers. Russell's Reserve for me is very oaky, spicy, char, not smoke, but char. It plays to me right away into almost like leather notes. Yeah. I always think it's going to have a little more cherry or some sweetness to it, and it backs to me all into the spicing and the oak part of bourbon. Try another sip. It feels good in the mouth. There is a bitterness to the sourness that comes in the finish as I have a few sips back to back. But it cleans up, dries okay in the palate, which always begs another sip. I like palates that dry up on the edge. The spicing is not complex spicing. It's not a rich palette of Christmas spices. For me, it's got cinnamon, little cracked pepper to make it hotter. And that's pretty much the spice palette. I actually find, I enjoy Russell's Reserve 10. It's not my favorite. And for the price and for the age stamp and the solid looking bottle and the history, you'd think I'd love it more. And it's actually why, this is like I said, a review for me, and I really, really spent time with this bottle wanting it to just come alive because it's good. It's solid, good bourbon, but it's not exceptional. I want it to be exceptional. I want to absolutely love this bourbon, and it always comes up shy for me. And even though it's got age stamp and all those kinds of things, it sets up around like a 3.5, 3 3/4. Like it just doesn't get off the mat, and I want it to. I really do. Must be me, must be my palate. I've seen lots of people review this and think, you know, this is solid, and it is good. But it's just not a bottle that I'm hoping to replace pretty quick. Interesting. Well, let's try how it sets up in this tasting with the Wild Turkey 101 and the Rarebreed. Okay, Wild Turkey. It seems like every other video, or every video, I'm talking Wild Turkey. This in my market is $10 less, higher proof, right? 101 instead of 90 or 50.5%. Rumor, 6-8-year-old instead of 10. Let's see how it is on the nose and palate. It is spicier and sweeter. Now I'm getting a little more cooked sugars, edge of burnt marshmallow. Like the nose better. Let's try the palate. Cheers. Nearly immediately, I like the palate better. It still has lots of the characteristic interplay between oak char, vanilla, cinnamon spicing, but it is just, obviously for me, but it's just a little more lively, a little more light and sprightly, and almost a little more edges of fruit I can play around with. I want a little more fruit in my bourbon. This isn't fruity by any means, but in comparison to the Russell's, which is very dry and oak forward, for me, this Wild Turkey is a better dram, and it's easily $10 less. All right, let's try Rarebreed. All right, now Rarebreed is significantly heftier, 116.8 or 58.4%, and sets up in the bottle with a darker, richer color. They're all natural color, as all good straight bourbons are. Let's try this one. Oh, now I've got like a cracked, not peanut brittle because there's no peanut really, but like a cracked sponge toffee or cooked down. This is now a thicker, richer nose than the other two. Let's try it full strength on the palate. Well, it definitely is potent, thick, rich. The alcohol adds to the spice, so the hot cinnamon goes in a cracked pepper. But it sets up in these three a little more bitter than I remember. Let's try a little water on the Wild Turkey. All right, I've put a little water on the Rarebreed. They're all Wild Turkey. Let it sit for a bit, let it dance around. Enjoy the warm afternoon here. Let's see how the palate's changed. The nose has moved now into almost the most sour of the three. Let's try the palate. Very interesting. In this sitting, it's kept a little more cracked pepper, a little more spicing, but it's dried right up and has moved, I would suggest, more closely to the Russell's Reserve than Wild Turkey. Quick sip of Russell's. I don't want to beat up on that bottle, but it has almost dried right out now. Now I'm getting like beechwood, older, like dried wood, losing a lot of life. Last sip of the Wild Turkey to kind of compare. They're all Wild Turkey. The 101. Certainly more life than the Russell's Reserve. But it's interesting how both of them have dried a little bit, almost in response to drinking the Rarebreed at full strength. Well, I've really appreciated the journey here. Each one of these bottles is solid bourbon and they're great value. In my market, the Russell's Reserve 10 and the Rarebreed are the same price, and Wild Turkey is a good $10 less. I would pretty much stay between, if I want something cask, bold, I want to play around with proof to find where I like it, I love Rarebreed. If I just want a bourbon I can pick up and pour or put structure in a cocktail, Wild Turkey 101 is nearly impossible to beat. I apologize to Russell Reserve fans, but for me, it just sets up a little too dry, a little too oaky, and comes up a little flat for my palate. 4 1/4, probably the same, but we're under 4, 3 3/4, almost down to 3.5 for me. Apologies to all those fans. Thank you for joining me here in the backyard. I hope you've had some nice bourbon to sip along and are having just a great weekend. Till the next video.